Session 4 Journal Video, Anna Cooper. Questions from the readings. After what you have learned in this class, what is your understanding of healthy sexuality? Has anything changed in your attitude? Healthy sexuality from a biblical worldview is the discipline of practicing chastity until marriage and then practicing fidelity in the marriage covenant for the life of the believer. It is for a purpose other than to avoid the sin of sexual immorality, which is clearly taught in Scripture. Romans 13:13 in the ESV states, "Let us walk properly as in the daytime, not in orgies and drunkenness, nor in sexual immorality and sensuality, not in quarreling or jealousy." Fleeing sexual immorality is not just about avoiding any expression of human sexuality outside of marriage, or the practice of homosexuality, or adultery, or any other type of sexual expression, as forbidden from this wisdom of Scripture. The practice of sexual purity from a biblical worldview is about embracing a truth and God protecting a valuable good gift by limiting its use. Lauren Winner, in her book, The Real Sex, The Truth About Chastity, states, "To be premaritally chaste is not to sit passively by and simply avoid sex. It is to participate in an active protection of good. As with all good gifts, when used for selfish wants or gains, a gift can and does become a curse, which can be evidenced by all the horrific consequences of the practice of sexual immorality. My attitude is firm in my convictions that a biblical worldview of human sexuality, as defined by the full counsel of Scripture, is simply the wise and honorable pursuit of healthy sexuality from the wisdom of its Creator." The next question states, what are some pros and cons of studying sexuality and using research in the exploration and understanding of sexuality? I believe we have gained much wisdom from research in human sexuality. An example of researched areas of sexuality that is beneficial to humanity is in the area of contraception. I do realize that some expressions of faith forbid the use of birth control in any form. Nevertheless, in my study of Scripture, I do not find the use of contraception a sin. This does not mean the use of some contraceptions, such as abortion, as a form of birth control. Clearly, that takes a life, and life begins at conception, according to Scripture. In Jeremiah 1:5 of the ESV, it states, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations." By using the researched and tested use of contraception that stops the sperm from fertilizing an egg is a valuable tool for families to use for the couples planning the size of their family. But contraception that allows a pregnancy to take place and then eliminates the pregnancy is tantamount to abortion. I do not see wisdom here, just a horrible example of contraception to eliminate a pregnancy at any cost. So there clearly is some value from researched sexuality. The next question, what are the differences in the presentation of healthy sexuality between our textbooks and Scripture? Clearly, our textbooks, Introduction to Human Sexuality by Janelle Carroll, is a book that does not view human sexuality from a biblical worldview. It discusses many different aspects of human sexuality from a scientific worldview and a historic worldview. As such, expressions and consequences of human sexuality, as expressed in almost any manner, are not called sin or are even considered sinful. They are accepted and encouraged to the reader to accept all expressions of sexuality, despite what Scripture says about the forbiddance of such practices. Lauren Winner, in her textbook, Real Sex, The Naked Truth About Chastity, and Kate Arthur in her book, The Truth About Sex, both discuss the issue of human sexuality from a biblical worldview. Each author discusses the beauty of sexuality as it is displayed in Scripture, and they explain the consequences of participating in sexual expression as is also expressed in Scripture. We have received wise teachings from all three textbooks, and we have received information from a humanistic worldview that must be brought to light, and we must allow Scripture to be our final authority on the matter of human sexuality as expressed in Scripture, despite the pressure from our culture or scientific community. The next question. From our study, what has influenced your current view of sexuality? Are there any changes to your perceptions or ideas that will change the decisions that you make? Well, I have been greatly influenced by the biblical worldview of our two authors, and that the two authors have brought to our study of human sexuality. I now see the value of chastity in a new light. I have a deeper value of sexual health than the teachings from Scripture alone. Our authors have opened up the value of not just abstaining from sexual immorality, but in actively pursuing the good aspects of healthy sexuality as expressed by Scripture. It is refreshing to explore human sexuality with authors who value and love the commands of God and joyfully explore the good gift of human sexuality as defined from a biblical worldview. Thank you.